only qualifier and direction that I had when I was first put in touch with Alpha was it needed to sound something like Slipknot. So naturally, the first thing I did was get myself into drop A. This is the guitar that was used on the actual track. It's a 7-string Jackson that I bought from my buddy Az pretty cheap. Thank you, Az, because, well, I wanted a 7-string. This was just jacked directly into the 2i2 and then through guitar rig, I think, and not a hell of a lot of processing was done, just a few EQing tricks here and there. The bass was this beaten up old 200 series I bought from ESP B-Stock many years ago. The more discerning musicians among you may be asking how I managed to get a 4-string 200 series into drop A. Thick strings and a hell of a lot of patience, let me tell you, but sometimes you just got to make the most of the tools that you have at your disposal. Bass is definitely something I want to upgrade in the near future though, but yeah, until that point I don't think she's done too badly for what she is. I knew early on in the track that I wanted to start with a lo-fi intro, so that when everything kicks in and that wall of sound hits, it hits hard. It feels like Alf himself is punching you in the face, right? I couldn't say for sure exactly where the riff came from. It's a very simple descending chromatic riff. I wanted something that was quite simple but energetic and could kick the track off in the right way, you know? Frenetic was the key kind of term I wanted to get across. Also, if you've ever listened to Slipknot, you'll know Sid Wilson has always got some kind of weird sound or effect being injected into the soundscape somewhere, and I wanted to do that here, so this is where this staccato synth kind of comes in. The idea was just to add an extra layer of urgency to the track, and the good thing with low tunings is there's always that headroom to put something higher up the frequency spectrum. And in this case, I think it actually needed it to complement that wall of sound idea that I wanted. I was listening a lot to a band called Cellar Darling around this time, and they've got a song called The Hermit, and the opening riff goes like this. So that rhythm and structure was bouncing around in my head quite a bit. I wanted to write something akin to it without being completely derivative of it. I also wanted it to sound heavier. I think the first iteration of the riff sounded something like this. And as you can hear, it's fine, but it's not particularly interesting musically. So it then became about, okay, how can we add some groove to it? So I just added some extra elements in there, some extra little palm mutes for that traditional metal vibe, and yeah, this is what we ended up with. The lead line actually features a mistake, or was written through a mistake. I have arthritis, so I tend to make a lot of unnecessary movements when I'm playing the guitar, just as a means of trying to not seize up and keep everything limber. The downside of that is quite often I'll hit a few jazz notes here and there when I hit the strings accidentally. This is actually what happened here. I kind of messed up the 4th note in this sequence. But I really liked how it sounded, so I found the note, the actual proper harmonic that it should be. Just give the fretboard a little tap in the right spot, and yeah, we kept it in there, and I thought it turned out really well. Happy accidents, right? Of course, it couldn't be a Slipknot-inspired track without Clown belting the hell out of something with his baseball bat. Unfortunately, I don't have a beer keg. What I do have is a stock Bell VST, which, after some layering and some very aggressive EQing, ended up sounding like this. The idea of all that EQing was to try and enhance just the metallic element. Otherwise it all just sounds very Jingle Bells, which is not exactly what comes to mind with Slipknot now, is it? But I think it sounds really good in the mix. I think considering what it actually is, I think I've done well enough to emulate the sound I was going for. Yeah, like I said earlier on, sometimes you just got to make the most of the tools you have. I'm sure many of you have figured out what the inspiration for this next riff is, judging by the previous title card. Yeah, of course, it's Walk by Pantera. It's such a simple riff, but still one of the coolest riffs in metal. The idea for this section was just to switch the pace up a little bit, try and slow things down, make it a little less busy, so that the track itself didn't remain at a constant the entire way through. And yeah, I tweaked the syncopation a little bit and tried to make it fit to the piece of music we already had. I still wanted things in this section to sound chaotic, so this is where this synth comes in. It's very difficult to listen to in isolation, but the dissonance was very much an intentional design. I wanted it to be chaotic still, I wanted it to sound aggressive. And then in the second half we have this little 16th note riff that I chucked in. This was purely just to evolve what was already there and then build that pace back up again before we hit the loop around for the track. And yes, this is me. I have an incredibly weak voice and I have no idea when it comes to growling technique, so I just set my microphone up and basically did a bunch of Cookie Monster impressions and then buried it in effects to make sure no one could hear just how terrible my barking technique was. When I do these themes, I like to add something personal to it, so even if it is just a catchphrase or a moniker or something they say regularly, it just prevents the track from feeling purely generic. It just gives it some character and something a little more personal to the performer. I know that's a very deaf rebel thing these days, but I still think it counts. I'm always going to be my biggest critic. I'm never fully happy with anything that I've done. I can look back on anything I've written and start picking it apart and saying, okay, this should have been done better, this isn't good enough. I think that just comes with the territory of anyone that creates anything, any creative type. And for this particular track, sure, maybe the bottom end could be a little bit tighter and maybe those guitars could do with a little extra bite here and there, but overall this is one of the tracks I'm more proud of. I think I conformed to the brief very well, and I think I achieved my aim with this one. When you're writing for someone else, of course, it's important to be happy with what you've done, but the client is the ultimate person you need to please. I'm at my happiest when I know they're happy with the work that they've received. So of course I want to thank Alf for trusting me for doing it in the first place and embracing it as part of his art. I think when you're a creative type helping another creative type, another performer, and trying to complement what they do, even just a small way like this, I think that's the coolest thing, man. Ultimately, my aim is to get better at making these things and keep going, and hopefully those opportunities will continue to present themselves. A big part of that is welcoming feedback and criticism and having that free exchange of ideas. So I'd love to hear what you think. What do you think worked? What do you think didn't work? It's all important, and it all goes towards making a better product. So yeah, please let me know. Anyway, that's enough of me rambling on for one video. Let's get to it. This is SUPLEX Merchant in full, played through by myself. Enjoy.
SUPLEX Merchant.